on my browser a while ago, and I was curious, and I went to his site, and I looked at the actions because I was really fascinated with his technique, which is like very creamy, dreamy, and I just about choked because they were $600 for the package I wanted. And I waited quite a while, and then there was a great sale on, and I decided to take the plunge and purchase said actions. And I can tell you that I have not been disappointed for a minute. They are amazing, and I thought I would show you how the editing works for a normal person. I'm not really normal. I do professional editing for photographers, but I am not, like Kevin, the owner of KCC, who has won huge awards and stuff. So I'm a lot more normal than that. And anyway, yeah, I thought I would bring you guys through and show you how I would do an edit like this. So I just grabbed this image from DeviantArt. It was a nice, really happy picture. I thought it had a lot of potential of stuff I could do with it. So the first thing I would do quickly is I would grab my healing tool, and I just like to make sure it's the spot healing tool. And if there's any things that are kind of distracting for me in the background, I'm just going to get rid of them right now. Sometimes this works really well, and sometimes it doesn't, and I just kind of have to roll with it. But yeah, if there's anything I don't like, I just get rid of it right away, and then I don't have to think about it or worry about it later. And I'll probably go back and use this on the skin later, but just if I'm doing backgrounds, I always want my backgrounds to look decent before I do anything else. I get rid of that whole thing. I like that better. And I'm going to be doing a bit more blurring on this later anyway, so I'm not too concerned. So that looks good. It's a little less distracting than it was before. I'm happy with that. And so now I'm going to move on to the bokeh blur. So if you go, there's a couple of folders here. I bought all the actions, as I said. There's a whole bunch of different packages. There's a package called Bokeh Lovers 2 and one called Bokeh Lovers. There's also some bokeh hiding inside of the total pack. I really like bokeh and color lovers, but my go-to usually is bokeh 1.0 under Bokeh Lovers 2. So I'm going to run that. And a lot of these actions are kind of hefty. There's a lot of steps to them, so they're going to take a minute or two to run through. But this is when you put on a really good Netflix show and just relax. So you can see that it made the whole picture blurry. And obviously I don't want the girl blurry. So I'm going to go up here to the very top and I'm going to click on that white square. I'm going to select a black brush. It has to be soft, so I make sure that it's showing like a gray color right there and that the softness is all the way at 0, or hardness, I guess. I'm going to put the opacity to 100, and I'm just going to make this smaller, and I'm going to start going in and getting rid of all of the blur. If you want to be able to tell where you've been, you could just use the backslash button. Oops. And it will show you where you've already gone. And I don't really mind if I do a loose, like if it's not perfect on the edges, it's fine with me. The background's already blurry. If my background were sharp, which I wouldn't take a portrait like that anyway, but if it were, sometimes clients give me photos like that, then I would go in really carefully, but it's already a blurry background, so it's fine. So there we go, that looks good. Just a couple more areas there. Make sure I really got everything off the face. And then, so there we go, that's the background before and after. And it gives that creaminess that I just love. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to flatten it under layer. Now this is not KCC, but this next thing I like to do is under Greater Than Gatsby. It's the Radiance collection. And I'm going to zoom in. And if you take a look, you can see that there's like some red in these like areas of the face here. There's some red patches and I don't want those anymore. So Greater Than Gatsby, I could go over here and I could go to my hue saturation, take out the reds, but I like that Greater Than Gatsby has a shortcut for this. It's called Shed the Red. And I just play it and it brings me a black box. I've got a white brush. I don't usually start at 100. Sometimes I do if I think it's really, really red. And I like to just go over those overly red patches and get rid of them. KCC has a skin tone set of brushes that I like to use, and he claims that that they will fix the skin tone so you don't have to do this, but I don't find that. I find that I really need to do a little bit of correction before I bring out those brushes. And if I didn't get enough of the red, I could go up here and increase the opacity. Like there's this one little patch right there that I don't like. Right under the chin is still pretty red. And if I still wanted it, even if I exhausted all of my options here, I could go over to the opacity right here and I could bring it up, but you can see that it turned her gray. And I don't want her to be gray, obviously. I just want to get rid of that red. So I'm happy with that. I could take a little bit out of the neck right there too. By the way, if you want to make your brush bigger and smaller like this, you can just use the bracket keys on your keyboard. I do this all the time rather than going right here and sliding it up and down. It's a lot better for time saving. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to flatten it, layer flatten. And then I'm going to go to the skin tones. Actually, now I would go in and she's got beautiful skin. But if I were being really picky, I could zoom in. And if there were any blemishes, whoa, that's a little close for me. Then I could go and take the spot healing tool and just get rid of anything. Really, for kids, unless they've got like a gash or something on their face or something really strange happening, I wouldn't normally bother. But this is great for days when any teens or adults have some blemishes. But I like to keep the skin fairly natural. I don't like taking away freckles. I don't like taking away wrinkles unless clients request them to be gone. I don't take away my own wrinkles because they're just a part of me. And if there are stray hairs, you can just go in with this as well and get rid of them. And usually it works really well. So that's fine. I mean, honestly, I'm just nitpicking and just trying to find things right now because she's got awesome skin. So I'm going to leave that alone. I'll zoom out. I'm on a Mac with a touchpad, so I'm just squeezing my fingers together and then it zooms out for me. Or I could use the magnifying glass right here to zoom out. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to skin tones. There are skin tones under Baby Doll, but I find that they're not ideal for people of different ethnicities other than Caucasian. There is one where you can like darken people a little bit. If I go to the total pack and I go to skin tones, there's a much better range. This is just telling you to use a 60% or 70% brush. Don't go over eyes or eyebrows, and don't steal or share these with people. That's good. Don't do that. So I like to go to suntan if I'm working with skin that is not pure snow white. And I'm on a white brush. He says 60 to 70. I usually do like 50 to 60. And I'm just going to go over, and this is going to kind of even out the skin tone. And I'm going to do quite a bit more skin stuff, so I'm not minding that I'm going a little bit darker here, because I will be kind of doing some contouring work with the skin. But I love these because they really do even it out beautifully. And aside from not really covering up major spots like yellows or reds that I get rid of the other way, these actions are perfect. So there I go. I didn't go over eyebrows or eyes or lips, obviously. I don't want to trim them strange colors. And then you can dodge and burn later, but I actually like to go in and use some of the lighter colors to do some of the contouring. So I'll sometimes use peachy or like any lighter color, and I'll just go over the cheeks. That's a little bit harsh for me. I'll go over any area that kind of is highlighted on the face already. I'll go in with. And I'm really conscious of the fact that I do not want to change people's ethnicities ever. But I always do a brightening of the highlights and a darkening of the darks. So that's usually the apples of the cheeks, um, the lower lip, any highlights under the eyes. This half of the neck is a little bit brighter. Tops of the shoulders. So just look for those highlights. And I'll do a little bit more with Dodge and Burn later. And then KCC has this awesome thing at the bottom of this list right here. It's called Beautiful Warmth. Holy smokes, if you want to make somebody look like they're glowing, this is the one. And this one I just like to use a little bit on the final highlights to make them stand out the most. And it really gives that glowy look, and I'm just obsessed with it. And I get lots of people asking, how do you get people to glow like this? This is the secret. I'm going to give a shout out to Tara Lesher right now. Tara Lesher, I'm in her education group, and I purchased her videos in order to learn how to composite. And she gave me some of these tips, and I highly recommend you go and get her videos if you'd like to learn how to do magical looking photography and some really gorgeous editing, especially like she specializes in children, which I've chosen to specialize in as well. And her work is so good. So there's not just one person or set of actions I am loyal to. I'll use whatever does the job. So now we can see that's after. So before, beautiful, but after, smoother, glowier, more consistent. I love it. It's beautiful. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to flatten it. So layer flatten. And then I'm going to go, let's see, where do I want to go to next? I'm going to go to, I could go, I think right there in the total pack, it might have been there. There's an eye sharpen, there's baby blush, dodge and burn lip. I guess I could do some teeth whitening. Again, with kids, I don't really do it that much. I kind of like children to look really naturally beautiful. I'm just going to do it the tiniest bit right here. So again, I'm on a white brush. And then I'll just turn that on and off to make sure I didn't do too much. That's okay. I'll flatten that. I always like to close these things up after I use them. Just keeps everything organized for me. And then I kind of hop around a bit. Then I like to go to the baby doll. And the baby doll has Skin Rescue close up. Wedding Day also has the Skin Rescue, the close up or the far away. This is close, so I'm going to run it. And this is going to give that airbrush look. Some people like to go a little heavy on this. I like to go pretty light. So like I would never go above 50%, but some people like to really lay it on and make it extremely smooth. And so I'm on my white brush, I'm at 50%, and I'm just going to go over the major areas. I'm going to avoid the lips. I like to avoid like creases and stuff. I just like to go in the big areas. If you like to do this the old-fashioned way, you can look up frequency separation as a tutorial, and this uses frequency separation so that you keep the texture of the skin. If I zoomed in, I'd still see some texture there, but it smooths out everything else. It's a really cool process. If you do it yourself with frequency separation, you could save the action yourself, but I don't do that anymore. I used to do all sorts of hand edits, and I don't know, maybe I'm becoming lazier as I get older. And then I'm going to zoom out a bit. And because I'm conscious of keeping things natural, I like to turn this on and off. And I like that it smooths the littlest bit, but I can still see that she looks like a human being and not an alien. So I'm going to flatten that. KCC also has things like baby blush. If I wanted her to have some rosier cheeks, I could just go here, white brush, just keep it right there, and give her cheeks just the littlest bit more. Sometimes it gives more color on one side than the other, depending on what's there in the first place. So I kind of have to adjust my opacities when I do this. But very sweet. So off, on, maybe a little heavy for my liking. Sometimes I'll put this on lips too. So that's sweet. I'll flatten that. I'm going to go to the eye treatment under Baby Doll. And I usually I start it with 100. I'll zoom in. It's easier if you've got bigger eyes to work with. I don't even know if it'll work on this one, but let's find out. So I just make the brush, white brush, the size of the inside. Yeah, this is going to do nothing, but this will brighten the eyes and sharpen the eyes a little bit. So brighten the color and sharpen. So it's great. So I'll just flatten that out. Oh, she's so pretty. Let's see what else I could do in here. Those are my major things. The other thing I might do sometimes is I might liquefy. Usually I'll do that at the beginning, but if I go to, filter, liquefy. Oh man, this is where you could really have some fun or do some damage. Just look up in Google Photoshop Hall of Horrors, and you will see all of the terrible things that people have done with Photoshop and manipulating people's faces. So this top one right here, the forward warp tool, if you make your brush really big, you can do some nice stylistic things like volumize hair a little bit. And that's really popular and for kid edits. And you can go in and add soft waves as well. You have to be careful about the background that you're taking a look at what you're doing. You never want it to look like you were photoshopping. You always want it to look like you just magically take portraits like this. Easy to overdo, that's for sure. So that's pretty cute. It's nice and subtle. And the dangerous area, well, you could go over here and um, you can start. So these menus might be closed on you. You can open them with this little triangle right here. And you could start playing with eye size. So one eye could get bigger or smaller. I'll just pop these up to show you. So there's her with bigger eyes. You can do things like tilt. You know, sometimes you get one eye that's just not cooperating with you and it's tilting funny. Well, you can fix that really easily. But I'm going to reset those because she's got a perfect face. And why would I mess with something so beautiful? It's kind of hard to reset. Um, ah. You can do eye distance. You can do the nose. Again, I'm really conscious about people's features and just letting them be. I would almost never, unless somebody specifically asks me, and I do get lots of people who want their face like slimmed down, but again, never on a child. So you can change all sorts of things here, and that's up to you. I'm going to cancel that because I don't want to change that stuff. The next thing I like to do is I like to play with filters. There's so many here. So if I wanted a more autumn-inspired look, one of my favorites is Harvest Boldness. And it really darkens everything up and makes everything kind of orangey. If it's overdone, then I can just go to the opacity and I can change that right there and turn this on and off to see how it worked. That's not going to work for this edit because it really is a summer edit. Before I get into those, I'm going to do a little bit of curves. So if I go to the half and half circle right here, I'm finding this picture a little bit dark. And I do want to brighten it. Whoa, too much. I want it to be kind of fresh. So there's before and there's after, but I can still see some nice darks in there and some nice highlights with texture. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to flatten that. And now I'll go back. KCC just has so many. So if I wanted a retro kind of inspired look, then I could go to Europe or I could go to retro film. In retro film, Clean Sally is one of my favorites. Kind of makes her look green in this case. I'm not going with that. And in Europe, this isn't a really retro-y kind of thing to me. But I can't even remember which one I like the most in here. Maybe Times Past. And that'll give you that kind of old school look. One that's really popular that people like to do is a bit of a matte. So if you go to the total pack and you do matte with color pop right down here, it looks pretty scary when you first do this. Usually I start by just like lowering the opacity a lot. And you can kind of give it that bit of a matte look. Again, I'm not really in the mood for that tonight. If I go to Wedding Day, I'd say most of my favorites are in Wedding Day. Pure and Clean is gorgeous. It gives you, well, that pure and clean look. It kind of takes the muck away from colors, makes them brighter. Bold and Beautiful does something similar, and that's oftentimes a go-to for me. And sometimes I'll run it before I even run anything else. And I really like that right there, so I will run that first. So Bold and Beautiful, and then I'm going to flatten it. And another collection that I love using for summertime stuff, really green things, is the Spring collection. And one of my favorites is Easter. And that made her too yellow. I'm not a fan of that. But I could either reduce the opacity, and still she's a little hyper yellow for me there. I'm going to bring that back up. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a mask on it. So I'm going to go right here to the box with the circle in it, and I'm going to press that. And you'll recognize this. Now I can use a black brush and switch that. I'm going to change my opacity to just around 50%. And I'm going to paint it off of her face a little bit so I don't get such a yellowy look on her face. And now I can see what it looks like off and on. Might bring a little bit of that back. So now I'm on my white brush and I'm just painting it back on again. And I love that you can paint this stuff on and off. There are so many ways to customize this stuff that I don't even understand yet. Yeah, like you would have to watch some of Kevin's videos to do that as well. So layer, flatten. And then I love giving it a little bit of drama by doing some vignettes. And so I go to the total pack. And there is something called Pop the Subject or Light Tricks. Light Tricks, it seems, it kind of gives you a vignette and then it leaves the middle lighter. So there's on and off. It made it a little bit dark in the background for me. I would go to the top right here and I would bring that down a little bit. I'm happier with that. That's Light Tricks. And Pop the Subject is really similar. I find it just doesn't leave you like that light space in the middle as much. So I'm going to run Pop the Subject now to show you. So I click on the white box and I get my black brush. 50% is fine. And in this case, you take it and it kind of darkens everything up a bit. And then you brush it off the main subject and you leave it on the rest. In this case, it looks pretty similar to Light Tricks to me. Sometimes I'll use both if I want like a lot of drama. And I'm happy with that. I'm actually going to try paint it right off of her. I want her to be bright here. That's nice. So I'm going to go to layer, flatten. And this is looking pretty good so far. I'm going to add this one bit more of drama and then I'll do my final dodging and burning. So I love, I've bought light flares from Tara Lesher. I've got them from KCC as well. So I'm going to go to place linked and I'm going to go to light leaks. So I bought all of Kevin's light leaks. And you can see here that these are all sort of different lighting situations that I could put on the subject in order to make the picture look magical. And this is, to me, is kind of what separates regular photography from like magical pro photography. It's manipulating things and making that light work for you. Even if it's not in the picture, then you create it. So behind us is a great one. It's a really warm light. I use Center Glory a lot. Dance in this light is so beautiful. Godly Burst is a little excessive, but I love it. So there's just so many things that I use here. I'm going to try behind us and see how that works right here. So I'm going to go to place. I'm going to take it, and I just want it to look like she's lit up from behind. So I'm going to hold down my shift key and drag the corner. I hold my shift key to keep the proportions. And then I hit enter. And I take this screen right here, this menu, the blending modes, and I put it in screen. And you can see that I've got this line right here and it's really bright behind. I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to put a mask on that. And I'm at 100% opacity good. I just like to soften the edges up. In an ideal world, this would be done for me. And sometimes I save them this way to save myself the work later. Now I'll turn this layer back on And you can see that it's still really strong. So I'm going to reduce that opacity right there. And I'm going to wipe it. I'm going to take it off the girl now. And I could always use that backslash and see where I removed it if I'm not really sure. And so now here it is, off and on, off and on. Sometimes I'll go around and do my edges the littlest bit more. That is pretty good. I'm happy with that. And it gives just that little bit more magic. I would probably experiment a little bit more. I would try some different ones, but this will be fine for the moment. So I'll take that and flatten it. And then the final thing is dodge and burn. Dodge and burn takes your photo and it really improves the kind of flatness that a lot of photos have and makes it look professional, 3D. So KCC has this under baby doll for sure. I know there are other places, but I always go to the one under baby doll. There are two. There's one that's quick down here and there's one that's not. I prefer the one that's not. I like the control it gives me. And I'm going to run that. And this says paint with white at 10% or paint with black at 10%. So I'm going to start with the white. Make sure I select a white brush. I've got a brush here. I'm going to put it at 10%. And I'm going to go in. And one last time, I'm going to go over the areas that should be lightest. And I am conscious of the fact that I've already done some of this. And I'll do it everywhere. I'll do it if there's like wrinkles on clothing. I don't just do the face. I'll do it anywhere on my subject or if there's somewhere in the background. Just that little bit under the eyes. Crazy about cheeks being bright, as you can see. You can do this in hair. You don't want to go too dramatic though, or else it looks kind of creepy, plasticky. And then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go to the dark, paint on the black. I'm going to switch this, and since this is pink, I don't want it to be pink. I'm going to click on that box and just select black and hit OK. Now I have a black brush at 10%. And now I'm going to go over the darkest parts. Usually a little bit around the face. Again, shout out to Tara Lesher who showed me some of this. I might not ever be as good as her or as Kevin from KCC, but man, I've really been able to step up my skills since learning from them. And then I could go in and I could add a little bit more dark to my background, or switching and adding a little bit more light. And I could kind of paint on light rays here as well, which I like to do sometimes. Again, there's so many ways of doing this stuff the old-fashioned way, but I like the ease that I can do all this stuff with. And I think that is pretty awesome. Beautiful picture of this girl. It always helps when your pictures are decent to begin with, a lot. I'm going to flatten that. And I'm going to save this as I'm going to save that as Sweet Watermelon Edit. I like to save at the highest quality that I can. And then I'm going to actually go back and find that picture in here. Here's, no, that's the one. So here's the original. And here's the edit. And you can see what a huge difference that makes. And I'm doing this slow, well, slowish because I'm doing a tutorial, but I would say most of these take me, if I'm really on the ball, 15 minutes. And if I'm just taking my time, they can take longer. But what a difference. It makes an ordinary, nice looking photo look stunning. Oh, one more thing you could do. There's two more things. I lied. Sharpen. Sharpen for print. If you add things to Facebook or if you print them, they're always going to get blurrier. And so I always do a sharpen at the end. So on, off. I don't know if you can see that. I don't always like what sharpening does to the skin, so sometimes I'll paint it off of the skin. But there's on and off, on and off. And I like how it catches all those baby hairs and everything, so good, I'm going to keep that. And then KCC also has something I often like to finish with. Tara does as well. And that would be the painted action. So there's paint it. And I'm going to run that. And you're going to see it's going to be really dramatic at the beginning and kind of horrifying and not normal looking. I'm going to reduce this. See, that's not too bad, but I'm going to go to the very top. There's all sorts of ways you can adjust this. I don't often really go through those. I'll just take it from the top here and I'll turn it on and off. And once I reduce it a bit, I'll often flatten it from there. And it kind of makes your picture pop, gives a little bit of an oil painterly look. And I'll show you what the Tara Lesher looks like as well. So there's Tara's. I have all of her actions as well, but I tend to use my KCC the most. So that's Tara's at full tilt. No, not okay. So I'm going to take that and reduce it. So on and off. I like a really subtle difference, but it kind of sharpens, kind of blurs. I would often paint it off of the skin too, so I'd put a mask on it, use that black brush, and I would make sure that brush is at 100. And in either of those cases, I would probably paint this filter off the skin just so I don't get any like over sharpening or pixelation or weird abnormalities going on with the skin. And I love this. This is so beautiful. So layer, flatten. And once more, we'll go back to the original and the edit. And what a world of difference. So I hope you enjoyed this and give it a try on your own photography. And with some practice, you could end up with some really pro looking results. So thank you.